Beep 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 beep.
Oh, speaking of beep beep boop boop, I'm not going to say any
Pee-pee
more
bitch boy?
about that. No, I was going to make a
Yes.
Beep boop boop beep bop beep boop.
Beep boop boop bop.
I boop boop bop.
I don't. I was going for the SpongeBob reference. I'm not sure.
No, me too. That's what.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Welcome to RPG Book Club, the podcast where we play a little bit of a video game and talk about how it makes us feel. I am Sam Allman.
I'm Elias Sailor Eli Warren.
And I am Maddie Grace Alexandra Webber. The third Esquire. Same joke.
And today we will be playing Case 2 of DanganRonpa, Trigger Happy Havoc for a lot of Sony consoles plus the PC and mobile.
Hell yeah.
But before we get to any of that, how was your week?
So I had a slightly more interesting week than normal, in that I had to explain to someone that she was experiencing white fragility without using the words white fragility, because when I explained to her when I explained to her what was going on and why I felt she was angry about getting called out for something, her response was to snarkily dismiss me by saying, "Oh, so it's white fragility, huh?" And so that was a whole thing.
Well, yes.
Yeah,
I'm glad you're aware of the concept.
Yeah, it was like,
okay, cool. So stop.
Yeah. Yeah, and so like it was. I was like, I'm not a person of color. I'm as white as the driven snow, and I can't really like speak to POC appearances. Jeez, cut that out, please. I'm
okay.
Sorry. I can't.
Experiences.
Experiences. I can't speak to POC experiences. I know what they look like. I just can't talk.
You're not like one of those tech programs.
Yeah. And, but I was like, but I am a part of another extremely marginalized group, which is trans people. And let me give you some examples of why, like, it's understandable that this person finally snapped and called you out. And why the fact that you don't like this person doesn't make their call out irrelevant. And right. So I had to, like, going through that with a friend is incredibly terrifying for me because I have these fears based on previous experiences where a single fight will break up a friendship. Mm-hmm. And not even just a fight, just anything. Like, I'm not talking to them enough. I'm talking to them too much. Like, no matter what I do, a friendship's going to end. And so I have a lot of gun shyness when it comes to that sort of thing.
I get it.
But we got through it, and in the end, she was like, "Thank you so much for being honest with me." And a while later, she said, I was able to kind of process what you said better after I was no longer so angry.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like it worked out well, and it made me feel good about being able to help a friend through this, even if I wasn't just like comforting her. Mm-hmm. And that's really scary for me to do.
Yeah.
So,
proud of you for doing that. That's great.
It's an important thing to have the hard conversations with your friends and family because somebody's got to do it.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I will say that's a great example of an important point that you like already obviously get this point, but because of the story you just said. But like I'm always struck by how true it is that people don't change their opinions during a conversation. They change their opinions later. Right? When you have an argument or disagreement with someone, the goal shouldn't be by the end of this combo, they're going to agree with me, because that's just not how the human brain works, right? But the idea that later they came back and were like, hey, I thought about what you said, and after it settled in my brain, I realized that you were right, basically. I'm like, that's awesome. Like, that's how it's supposed to be, and that means that you did a really good job. And you weren't, like, being so much of an ass. I'm not saying that you would be an ass, but you didn't, they didn't just, like, shut you out completely because of what you were saying. That's awesome.
It felt like a big win.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick, that reminds me of a tweet I saw today. It was somebody's Twitter DMs, and it was like, I used to hate your guts, but now I'm a socialist, so thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that should be
that should be the goal.
That's the fucking goal. Well, no,
people can change.
Okay, from a moral and global socio-political standpoint, that's the goal. From a more personal, petty standpoint, the even better DM version of that DM would be, I used to hate your guts, but now I'm trans. Like I disagreed with you, and now not only do I agree with you, but I also transitioned. And I'd be like, hell yeah, see, that is the dream right there.
Yeah, that was great. The other thing I did this week was FaceTime with my dad for the first time, and boy, was that an experience.
Experience like wild, or was it like rough?
It was just weird. Mm-hmm. It was just a weird experience. I mean, Dad was intoxicated to some degree, so there was that. I should get intoxicated. And he spent the majority of the time looking at himself and trying to make sure that he looked okay. And also he was shirtless the whole time.
Wait, you mean y'all don't look at your own self in the camera the entire time you video chat someone? Because I sure do.
I mean, mostly, yes. Like, that's the problem I have with video conferences is I sit there going, oh God, do I look all right?
Yeah. For me, I'm always like, okay, what pose am I maximum hot? And the whole time they're talking to me, they're like, my friend is like sharing with me her like deep, serious problems. And like, I am listening, but part of my brain is like, okay, slightly adjust the angle to the left, flip the hair a little bit. There we go. All right, hold that position. You look fucking hot, babe. Keep it up.
For me,
and then I take screenshots of it so that I know how good I look.
For me, it's what position can I put the phone in that makes me look the least like I have multiple chins? The answer is none of them. They're chins from all angles. They exist as entities unto themselves. But it was fine. I got through it. I love my dad, but boy, he can be weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yesterday was all Dad's Day in the Catholic liturgical calendar.
So yeah, I hope you all said hi to your wonderful fathers. If your father is not wonderful, I'm sorry. And I hope that, or if you don't have a father, I'm sorry about that too, I guess, unless that's a good thing. I don't know. I'm going to shut up now and let someone else talk, because clearly I should not be speaking.
Whatever feelings you have about your father, they're valid.
Are valid.
I'm trying to be sensitive, and I'm failing fucking miserably.
Yes.
Hey, it's like the other day when I was trying to be trans sensitive, and I said that Storm was rocking the peen peen. Sometimes sensitivity just backfires, and you just have to write it out.
Yeah, that's
it's a growth process.
Why do you have to remind me about that, Sam? So I'm going to piggyback off what Eli said, because I also had Dad have yesterday. Because of Dad's Day. I had a lot of news over the last couple days, family related. I found out on last fucking Thursday or something. I don't really know. My sister calls me, which is a shock, because to briefly fill y'all in on my family history, me and my sister used to be really close. and we're not so much anymore. Not because of my transition. It happened a few years prior, but it kind of makes me sad, and I've always kind of wanted to rekindle that relationship. But ever since I transitioned, it's been a lot worse. It's not exactly that she says terrible things or transphobic things, more just that she hasn't had the opportunity to, because I've mostly just been not been avoiding her. Whatever. The point is, we don't have a strong relationship right now. And we haven't talked since Christmas, and our talk over Christmas was a very short video chat. And by short video chat, what I really mean is I was video chatting, my brother was video chatting with her, and I popped up looking like myself, and then she made pleasantries and popped off the call pretty shortly after. Yeah, it could have just been that she was busy and she'd been talking for long enough already, but it kind of felt like seeing me in the screen made her not want to continue the phone call. Anyway, that was our last conversation. So she calls me like on Thursday, and I'm like, what? Also feeling a little guilty because I felt bad for not calling or texting her in the last 6 months. Anyway, she's pregs. News is that she's pregos. Yeah. And I'm really excited about that. Like, obviously, I love having apparently the gender neutral term here is nibblings, which I do not like. That is,
I love it.
I love the word nibbling.
I think it's a
so
bad
cute.
word. But
You're a bad word.
But since no one else has thought of a better one, I guess that's what we're going with. So I like having more nibblings. God, that's so bad. IMO. Support gender neutral language doesn't mean you have to support every single
Maybe
word.
you should actually maybe you should eat more food, so then you won't have any nibblings, you'll have a full bite.
Shut the fuck up. Anyway, the point is I'm looking forward to the idea of having more nibblings, but it also sort of triggered a lot of thoughts about my relationship with my sister. Also, I found out that, in fact, my brother, the one who's already had 2 kids, they got a 3rd one on the way, which I didn't realize that. I guess I didn't get the memo on that one. I mean, I've kind of foreclosed the possibility of a relationship with that guy at this point, which is sad. Anyway, so me and my dad talked, and as usual, we didn't talk about anything that I actually care about, which is to say my transition or anything politics related. So we mostly made pleasantries, but I did thank him for being a good dad in certain ways, which he largely was. If I were to sum up my dad feelings, it would be thus. My dad did a really, really, really great job making me the person I am today, and it makes me sad that he doesn't appreciate that. In other words, he made me awesome, but he doesn't think I'm awesome.
Yeah.
I mean,
my parents think they made me awesome, and I think I'm terrible. So.
I mean, it's not like my dad literally says
think you're
awesome,
spectacular, Eli.
Yeah, me too. But yeah, it's weird that like dad doesn't seem to appreciate the product of his own good parenthood. You know what I mean?
And it's probably an issue of you're not the person who he expected you to be, and because he had those expectations, and it's so dumb. And like my parents have always taught me, like, you're your own person. We don't have like we expect you to excel because you're really smart and we believe in you, but also like what you want to do with your life is your own to decide, and like what we think of you in the grand scheme is not important.
I think my dad would agree with that on paper, but obviously not in practice. But yeah, it's just a shame because, like, honestly, like, I'm being totally honest here, like, a lot of the qualities that I think are really good about myself, like if I were to list like pros and cons of me as a person, a lot of those pros would be things that I didn't just get from my dad, but my dad very deliberately did a good job of making sure that I had those qualities, you know, like not passively, but actively. So like, got to give the guy credit for it, you know, but also it's like, would be cool if we could talk about it more. Anywho, that's my dad feels. Other than that, not much. The usual shit. I got some interesting things cooking, but that I'm not going to talk about. What about you, Sam? What's going on with you?
So I am a dad. So my dad feels yesterday, Summer made crepes. She made Nutella crepes
fucking
and ham and
crepes.
cheese crepes.
Oh,
They were fucking great.
Oh, I want crepes.
And then for dinner, she made spaghetti and homemade meatballs. It was magnificent. And she let me play like 10 hours unbroken of Final Fantasy 14. It was my day to like do the dishes and the kitchen and the cat litter, and then of course like my dad duties of, Daddy, I want you to play Legos with me and all of that stuff. And Summer, although she's crazy overworked because a 6-month-old is the worst thing that's ever happened to anyone, and it's happened to basically everyone, but she still like just did as much as she could to give me the day off, and it was great. We watched Digimon the movie for right when we woke up. Then we watched Zombies 2 from Disney Channel. And then I was like, oh, I should watch an anime today. And nothing was tickling my fancy. And I was like, I think I just want to play Final Fantasy all day. So I did. And it was great. I basically did.
That's dope.
But I am 5 quests away from rolling credits on 2.0 for Final Fantasy 14. I finished the single player content of 2.0, and I just have the multiplayer end game content left. And so it plays mostly like a traditional MMO. So it shouldn't be able to do this and do this well, but they did the Final Fantasy like final dungeon assault on Precinct 13 ass, like doing the thing. Like we got all of our guys, we're breaking in, we're doing the thing, and they pulled it off in like an MMO type setting with quests and quest markers and stuff like that. And it was like, as a feat of game design alone, it was like, holy crap, you can do this with MMO technology. You can make a Final Fantasy game in an MMO, and it blew my mind, and it's great.
As soon as you said, oh no, Thancred, I was like, I know where you are.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Spoilers, Eli.
What? I didn't say anything.
But yeah, it's good, and
it's real good.
Yeah, I really like it, and I think everybody that likes JRPGs should give it a shot. The only part that like I bump up against is the multiplayer required content that they're in talks to work around in the future. So
nice.
Down the line, you probably won't even have to talk to anybody to play the Final Fantasy game that is Final Fantasy 14, and it's pretty good.
Shadowbringers
really like
definitely don't. Well, except for the trials, but like all the dungeon content, like you can do that with NPCs, which is great.
The real trial
and they're
is other people.
Yeah. Yes. And so, like all of like none of the quest lines have been like, oh shit, yeah, this is epic. But all of them together is like, man, this is great. It's kind of like spoilers for Final Fantasy 12. You know how nothing fucking happens in Final Fantasy 12? But when you finish it, you're like, man, that was nice. I fucking like that. That's kind of how 2.0 is in 14.
Yeah.
I really like it.
Just wait until you get to Heavensward and shit starts happening.
Yeah, like I was talking with Eli before we started recording. I'm like, man, I'm losing my bonkers and I'm playing the worst one. What am I going to fucking do?
Well, technically, you're not playing the worst one because the worst one was 1.0
and has been written out of existence.
But,
yeah.
Yes. But speaking of losing my bonkers while playing the worst one, let's talk about Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc.
Hell yeah!
Oh
roll that, play that funky music, white boy.
Yeah, I have no idea what song I'll pick because all of them kind of sound the same and all of them kind of fucking slay. So I couldn't pick any of them out of a lineup, but I'll pick 2 badass songs for us to listen to today. And we'll listen to one of them right now.
So, where we last left our, hero, I suppose, two of our friends had just died. First, Sayaka had died after attempting to betray our hero like a fucking bitch. Also, Junko had died unnecessarily and tragically because she basically just tried to stand up against Monokuma and got offed. And finally, Leon was the one who had committed the murder. He defended himself, but then he went beyond self-defense and into intentional murder. So everyone's very shocked and upset and angry at Monokuma for what he has wreaked upon them. Technically, Chapter 2 has not started yet. So there's a brief little scene in a room after the trial. Monokuma has removed... Oh, you're back in your room. Monokuma has removed the corpse and cleaned up. Makoto mopes. Then he goes to the dining hall. The characters argue again. Some, like Hina, are still like, no more killing. We can work together and get through this. Others, such as Byakuya, Toko, and Celeste, are more cynical. Celeste notes that A, whoever did this took over the entire goddamn Hope's Peak Academy. B, they're providing all the group's needs. And C, the execution they just witnessed must have cost a fortune and ages to design and construct. Basically, in conclusion, their enemy must be extremely powerful. Byakuya says, if the enemy is this powerful, the only real way to escape is to actually do it by the rules. Chihiro, my wife, is best girl in this scene. And she says, I don't want to kill anyone else. Then she says that everyone is complicit in killing Leon. Makoto reminds her who the real enemy is. He says, don't waste your anger on yourself, which I think is fucking powerful. I wrote here, sound the Marxism klaxon in all caps. I will not sound the Marxism klaxon. Although Sam, if you wanted to do some audio editing, you could just bust in the fucking the Internationale if you wanted to. Just kidding. Monokuma bursts in and says, nighttime, and taunts them a bunch. On to Chapter 2, Boy's Life of Despair. So, in the morning, Monokuma calls... So first we're going to go through the first third of this, which is the daily life section. I'm going to blast through it. It is a couple of important scenes interspersed with going on dates. I'm not going to talk any about the dates because we don't have time, but of course we can mineral moments it up later. Also, my dates happen to also have important plot information, so that's fun.
Yeah, and the dates are literally impossible to do while you play, so it's not, we won't do any of them justice, especially like Eli, who isn't like aiming for a particular one because he knows they're going to die at such and such time. Yep. So we'll just basically leave them up for memorable moments. If you want a deep dive on them, just play the fucking game yourself. It's a masterpiece.
I do want to say real quick, I hung out with Mondo, and it's important for me to say that because of things that happen later.
Yep.
Yes.
Cool.
Eli busted into the chat early yesterday. He was like, man, I love Mondo. I've been going on dates with him. He's the best. He's the best kid in the entire world. I love him so much. And then,
yeah. Hey, at least you weren't going next with Byakuya. Anyway, Monokuma calls him to the gym and leads them all in calisthenics. But of course he has an announcement. He says, a whole new world has opened up. AKA, every time you do a trial, more of the school opens up to explore and enjoy. They disperse to investigate. Aha! The second floor is now available. I'm going to quickly run through it. There's 2 more classrooms, unimportant. There's a library. So first, let's talk about the library. Makoto notes that the books are very dusty, as if no one's been here in a long time. There's a letter containing some major plot info. It's an old dusty letter, estimated to be about a year old. It says, abridged, Hope's Peak Academy has always been a beacon of hope, blah, 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 blah. However, we will be closing the school for the time being. Serious issues beyond our control have made this necessary, but we will open our doors once again once the issues have been resolved. They're shocked. We just got here a few days ago. Wouldn't we have, known if the school had been closed, actually? What? Also, what the heck are these issues? At this point, I bet the listener and player probably has an idea percolating in their brain of what's going on. And I will say, whatever idea you have in your brain, you're probably mostly right, but not 100%. Oh shit, there's a laptop also covered in dust. Ah, fuck. It's broken. In a library, there's also another door. Byakuya says it leads to an archive and that it has nothing important in it. Makoto apparently accepts this and doesn't go in. The whole daily life segment of this chapter, you just can't go in
and
there.
You can't even make him go in.
Yeah. Like you click on the door and Byakuya is like, don't go in there. And you're like, okay. And I'm like, that's an archive. It's full of books. Why are we just letting this guy tell us to not go in there? Especially the guy who sucks. Whatever.
He sucks so bad.
So anyway, the other important area is the pool. Hina is psyched about this. Obviously, if you recall, she's the super high school level swimmer. So let's investigate the pool. The pool consists of 3 areas. First, there's kind of an entry foyer kind of area. There is I know it's not pronounced foyer. I don't care. I'm from Texas. There is a giant goddamn Gatling gun hanging from the ceiling. There's also 2 locker. Oh, actually, let's get past. Okay, so here's the situation. One might call this the locker room talk. The pool has a sort of foyer area with some basic equipment and the aforementioned Gatling gun. There's 2 doors, one blue, one pink, each with a scanner next to them. These are the boys' and girls' locker rooms. You need your e-handbook to get in. Monokuma says, if you try to sneak in the wrong one, the Gatling gun will blast you to pieces. Past both of the locker rooms is the pool. Celeste says, wait, what if a boy gave a girl his handbook? So Monokuma adds a new first official school rule. Students are forbidden to give lend, I think is the exact word, or loan. Students are forbidden to loan their handbooks to another student. Though, as Celeste notes, why would anyone do this anyway? If you give your handbook to someone else, they might do something bad, and you wouldn't want to be held responsible for it. Chihiro says she doesn't like wearing swimsuits, but she'd be interested in working out. She really wants to get stronger, but she's too scared to go into the locker room. Hina is hyped for swim, but Celeste and Chihiro are both like, eh. You return to the dining hall to convene. Taka says the warehouse and bathhouse the warehouse and bathhouse on the first floor are also open in the dorm area. I forgot to go to these places, hilariously, so when they later became important, I was like, what? Nighttime, daytime, breakfast time. At breakfast, there's a scene where Celeste orders Hifumi to make her tea, and he does. She spits out the tea and says, you did it wrong, make it again. Hifumi says that he's a little piggy and returns to make the tea again. So they've clearly entered into like a weird dom sub situation. It's very uncomfortable. Everyone realizes here that Celeste is a stone cold psycho.
Yes.
Byakuya hasn't shown up, and no one answers when Taka knocks on his door. We go look for him. Turns out he's just chilling in the library. He says, to heck with our agreement. There's a big argument. Chihiro says, let's all be friends and get along. Byakuya calls her a stupid, naive idiot and says, you gotta play to win. He says, I never agreed to our stupid rules. Like, fuck you, basically. We have free time day 1. Next morning, Byakuya is expectedly not at breakfast. Also, Toko isn't. And they talk about how Toko was upset yesterday. I must have missed that. Anyway, she's not here either. If you recall, Toko is the writer who is very, 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 very tsundere. Everyone talks about how they're legitimately worried Byakuya is going to murder somebody. Chihiro all of a sudden gets really sad because Byakuya hurt her feelings yesterday, and she totally froze up. She hates being a weakling. Mondo, the ultimate biker, gets annoyed and yells at her. But when she starts crying, he changes his tune and makes her a man's promise to not yell at her anymore. And, implied, to not yell at people in general. This scene is very, very, very sweet. Like, he's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. You know what? I'm promising you as a man, I'm not going to be mean to you.
Well, it's very sweet, except for the fact that he's like, oh, women are naturally weaker than men.
Yeah, which is, of course, what she was upset about to begin with. Chihiro says that she still wants to get stronger, and Sakura says they'll work out together. Also, we discover here that Mondo's brother died a while back, and Mondo's brother told him about that a man should never break a promise. Don't make a girl promise if you know you can't keep it. Free time day 2, dinner time. There's an incredible scene here. Okay, so Mondo and Taka are fighting, and they're fighting over some stupid shit that doesn't matter.
Scene.
It's such a good scene. They're fighting over some stupid shit that doesn't matter. And then they fight more and more and more, and they're like, you want to go? You want to go? You want to go? And they're like, yeah, let's go. Yeah, let's go. They decide that let's go means let's have a competition where instead of fighting, we're both going to go into the sauna. Because if you recall, there's a sauna on the first floor now, or a bathhouse, I guess is what the term they use. And they're like, let's see who can last the longest. So we get a scene where the two of them are in the bathhouse. I know Eli has a part that he likes a lot here, but we'll save it for memorable moments because unfortunately we can't talk about this scene much more. They both go into the bathhouse and they recruit Makoto into being like the spotter, the witness to see who wins the competition. And importantly, Mondo keeps his clothes on during this scene. Taka does not. But they're both like, I'm going to last longer than you. I'm going to last longer than you. Eventually it becomes nighttime, and Makoto's like, I gotta go to bed, y'all. And they're like, it's fine. And you're like, okay, what if y'all just fucking die, though? So Makoto goes back to his room, hoping they don't fucking die in the morning. In the morning, they are now best.
Quick aside.
Go on.
Quick aside. That competition is a real ass competition, like in Sweden and stuff, where they will just try to sweat each other out in a sauna. And the reigning champion was on Stan Lee's Superhumans, the documentary where he finds people with like shitty superpowers that would never let you be a superhero, but the human body is crazy or whatever. And so he interviewed the guy that like was a world champion at it. And at the end of the episode, where he's the whole time he's like, yeah, I know it's dangerous, but like I don't ever feel in danger. I just can take the heat. And so everyone should stay out of the kitchen, yada, yada, yada. It pops up on screen. About 6 months after we recorded this, he fucking died by being in too hot of a goddamn sauna. I'm like, oh, well, shit.
All right,
what a fucking shock.
Honestly, what a way to go. I respect that. That's awesome. That guy died doing what he loved, which is being a fucking idiot, which is how I would like to go.
Yes. So good.
I love that. I am in love with this person. Anyway, the next morning, Makoto goes to the dining hall, and Taka and Mondo are there, and they have become inseparable best bros. Like they're like, bro, this. Like they start every sentence with bro. They talk on and on, like they're annoying to the point. Like they're so much friends that they keep going on about how they're best friends. And Makoto was like, what happened in that sauna? And they're like, we shared a special bro moment that you wouldn't understand. It's fucking great. And I love them.
They jerk each other off.
After breakfast, Toko shows up in your room. She has a favor to ask. She wants you to accompany her to the library. Makoto is like, why do you need to escort to the library? Isn't Byakuya there? She flips out and makes you swear secrecy. So you're like, fine. All these characters are fucking insane. I'm the only normal person in this goddamn school. So you go with him. She makes you talk to Byakuya.
You're the ultimate normal boy.
She makes you talk to Byakuya, but he notices her and basically is a huge jerk to her and kicks her out of the library. Then she gets super goddamn horny because turns out she's like the biggest sub on the planet and has a crush on Byakuya. So, okay.
He tells her, you stink, go take a shower. And then when they get out, she's like, oh my god, he must care so much about me that he wants me to bathe. Yeah.
She's got some problems. Then we have free time day 3. It's nighttime. But Monokuma calls us to the gym for an emergency. Everyone wonders what's going on. Byakuya keeps being himself and telling everyone, and everyone tells him that he sucks. Then Hiro, of all the fucking people, says, hey, I heard something weird walking around last night. Like it's a construction site outside? Monokuma shows up and says, no, it wasn't construction, but it might have been an explosion or gunfire. That can sound like construction. Then he changes the subject and says, well, I'm bored again. Time for a new motivation. He says he's discovered everyone's darkest secrets and that they're here in these envelopes. He gives everyone their envelopes. Makoto, because he's boring and uninteresting, looks at his, and apparently his deepest, darkest secret is that he wet the bed until he was in 5th grade, which is pretty embarrassing. But also Makoto's like, okay, that's embarrassing, but I'm not going to murder someone to stop that from getting out. So Monokuma says, in 24 hours, I'm going to reveal your secrets to the entire world. Everyone else is mortified, but they all do just say, fuck you, we ain't killing for that. Similar last time, Taka says, let's all share ours. Here's some responses. Toko is like, no fucking way. Celeste says something interesting. She says, it's not that I don't want to, but it's impossible for me to do so, which is interesting. I actually don't remember what that means. Chihiro says, I really don't want to talk about this, but, maybe I can later. After I become strong, maybe I won't really mind sharing mine. Eventually they all just... what is the one rule, okay? The one rule is you never say in a narrative, I'm going to do something later. Yeah. Never say that. Don't say, once this is over, we're going to get a drink. Don't say... I can't wait to be retired. This is my last day before retirement. Just don't ever refer to things happening after now, okay? Just don't do it. Anyway, eventually they all just drop it. But they do decide to prepare. They're all going to prepare for the next day when it will, of course, be revealed regardless. Makoto goes to sleep. Quote, but what I didn't know is that at that moment, a tragedy was taking place. In the morning, Monokuma wakes you up personally. He says, something happened to one of your friends, LMAO. Oh, no. Dining hall. Who shows up? You. Hina. Sakura. Byakuya. Hiro. That's it. Is the rest of the group already investigating? We're really worried. We go to the pool. You click on the door to the boys' locker room, and it's open? Instead of locked like it's supposed to be. Before you can enter, announcement. Monokuma unlocked all the doors. He says, bitch, someone's been murdered. It's already an investigation. I unlocked all the doors. We enter the girls' locker room. At this point, I gotta mention, Byakuya is there with you and takes a prominent role in the investigation, kind of like Kyoko last time. Mm-hmm. He's very active in saying, this, and interesting, that. And it's Chihiro. My wife died. This is where I reveal that I did, in fact, max out Chihiro's dates. Turns out you do have just enough time to do that if you look up what gifts to give her. She is strung up in a crucifix position, tied to 2 pieces of gym equipment. Blood is everywhere. Oh my! I'm so sorry. I thought I was doing a really good job of this, but I fucking missed something very important. You know how last week we talked about how there's a serial killer? Did we talk about that last week? Yes, we did.
Yes, Genocide Jack.
Last week we talked about how there's a serial... Hold on, I got this. Last week we talked about how there's a serial killer out there called Genocide Jack, and they wonder if Genocide Jack is the villain in this game. This week we have a brief scene where we reveal that Genocide Jack always writes the word, has a very specific method of murder. And one of the pieces of the method of murder is that they always write the word bloodlust in blood at the scene of the crime. Sorry, I had to point that out. Because, in addition to Chihiro being strung up in a crucifix position, bloodlust is written on the wall behind her. Byakuya says, this murder is far too bizarre for an everyday person to commit. It's almost like the killer did it for fun, says Byakuya. Actually not lying. Everyone joins up. I'll cover the first evidence as its own special thing because it's super big. So bloodlust is written on the wall. Everyone remembers Byakuya said that's what Genocide Jack does. Other people say, holy shit, is this a copycat murder? Byakuya says, what if the real Genocide Jack is here? Then Toko shows up. She takes a good look at the blood, freaks out, and immediately faints. Oh, that's right. She mentioned last week she's hemophobic. Forgot to say that. She wakes up, and now she's a little different. Her tongue is hanging out. Yeah, she's acting real weird, and she sometimes does a creepy laugh. Hina and Taka decide, you know what? You must have hit your head, bitch. We're going to escort you back to your room. Finally, since the killer, may have been Genocide Jack, everyone's worried that they might kill again, so Monokuma adds a new rule. Because if someone just killed everyone else, that'd be boring, right? If someone just said, I'm going to kill everyone. a person who wants to graduate can't kill more than 2 people. He says, you know what, I'll leave it as 2 because that might still lead to some fun times. So they're like, we got to solve this case because if the serial killer's here, they definitely might kill again. So, investigations start. Monokuma file. Victim, Chihiro. Time of death, 2 a.m. Discovered in girls' locker room. Cause of death, blow to the head with blunt object. Died instantly. So, this investigation is a bit different than last week. It is very, very, very on rails. There's a sequence of super on rails scenes. They're actually important, so I'm gonna cover those as plot. Then I'll list off all of the evidence at the end. All right. So
it's so on rails that it won't let you leave certain areas until you've done all the things.
Yeah.
And it drove me fucking nuts because I couldn't figure out some of them.
Yeah. So
that's really handy. Handy though. But it's really handy because if you could just not get clues and then you get to the class trial and it's like, it's like. Oh, what did you find in the library? You're like, I didn't find a goddamn clue in the goddamn library.
The whole you can't leave till you find other clues. That's actually pretty normal in the game. And as Sam was saying, I find it handy because I wouldn't want to miss one to go back later. But the fact that Byakuya takes you around to each room without letting you even pick that's what makes this unique. So Byakuya is being very forceful in this scene. He's basically taking the lead and you're kind of just following him. So Byakuya says, he'll be your assistant this time. Let's go. So anyway, here we go. First of all, Monokuma confirms you can only get into the locker room corresponding with your gender by using your handbook. You can't lend it to someone else. Also, 2 people can't go in at once. So basically, the only way for a killer to get in the women's locker room is if they're a woman. Byakuya says, and to clarify, Chihiro is in the women's locker room. Obviously. Mm-hmm. So they're like, okay, well, only a girl could have gotten in here. Byakuya says, nope, there's a loophole. The rule prevents loaning one's handbook, not receiving it. Makoto doesn't understand this, but we do because we're smarter than Makoto. We then follow Byakuya to the entrance hall. Whoa, holy cow. There's something we never noticed before that Byakuya points out. In the entrance hall, there's a mailbox here with the handbooks of Sayaka, Junko, and Leon. Do handbooks get put here after their owner is killed? But also, what I said a second ago is a lie. One of the handbooks turns on and says Sayaka on it. The other one turns on and says Junko on it. The final one doesn't turn on. Is it broken? It's obviously Leon's, because he's the other dead person, but, it doesn't turn on, so you don't actually know. Monokuma says, dude, these things are totally unbreakable, but they do have one weakness. Maybe Leon accidentally found its one weakness and broke it, or maybe it's not broken at all. Here, Byakuya reveals to you that he is 100% convinced that the killer is Genocide Jack. So to him, the goal isn't really to discover the killer, but to discover who Genocide Jack is. And he even has evidence to prove it. But before we can move on, Hina shows up with an emergency. Toko's acting even more weird than usual, which is saying something. You go to Toko's room, Toko cracks her door open and is saying stuff like, I won't let Genocide Jack have control, and I'll drive out the killer. So everyone thinks that she's terrified of Genocide Jack and must be hiding in her room for her own safety. We, who are smarter than the characters, understand that's not the case. You try to get Byakuya to make her come out, which is pretty funny. You're literally like, hey, Byakuya, she's got a fucked up crush on you. You get her out of there. So she cracks open the door and says, Byakuya, I'm sorry I broke our promise, but I won't ever let Genocide Jack have control again. You ask Byakuya what the fuck that means, and he just ignores you and takes you to his library. Finally, we get to investigate the goddamn archive. So we go into the archive, and it's basically the same as the library, but smaller and more densely packed. It's actually a little bit funny. It'll have all these shelves where it's like, Byakuya's like, oh yeah, that bookshelf has a bunch of books about the deepest, darkest secrets of the universe. But if you read it, you'll probably be on a lot of people's hit list. They'll probably have to kill you. So you're like, you know what? I'm not going to read this book. I'm probably better off not knowing that kind of stuff. It's like,
ignorance is absolutely bliss in this case.
It's like, this book reveals who all the mafia people are, But anyway, Anyway, there's a lot of stuff here. I'm going to go kind of linearly. Basically, we find out some world building here, which is that the outside world, prior to the start of the game, so this isn't like the plot of the game, this is already how it was, it's actually, the entire world is controlled by basically a secret Illuminati cabal. Normally I'd be like, oh no, are they about to do tropes? But no, it turns out it's not anti-Semitic tropes. It's just normal Illuminati stuff. It's like they control everything, governments, businesses, and Byakuya is like, yeah, it's a couple of families. Also, I'm one of them. So it turns out that Byakuya isn't just the ultimate rich guy. He's the ultimate elite. He's literally
I hope this guy dies.
He's literally the heir to a world-ruling Illuminati empire. So that explains a lot of his entitlement complex. I hope they eat
this rich boy.
I'm not going to say what happens to Byakuya, obviously, but I do share your desire for him to get hurt very, very badly, hopefully sooner rather than later. Anyway, so yeah, that kind of explains why he is the way he is. Like he thinks he's entitled to literally the entire world. In addition, because he's part of the secret Illuminati cabal, he generally is privy to a lot of things that normal people don't know. And one thing that apparently he does for fun is he likes to read about unsolved murders. And he likes to read like the secret case files that only the cops get, but he gets them too because his family has connections, right? So he already knew all about Genocide Jack. So he shows you this. He shows you the Genocide Jack case file. There is other world building here, but it's a lot, you know. So like I think that's probably about as much as is relevant. So anyway, turns out Genocide Jack has a couple of traits. Not only do they always write bloodlust behind the victim, but they also always suspend their victims in the crucifix position. Here's the thing. That latter thing was the secret to everyone. Only the investigators and the killer herself would have known. And also Byakuya, which is something that Makoto doesn't pick up on.
Themselves.
What did I say?
Herself.
God damn it. I've been trying
Spoilers.
so hard to not say that. Every single time I've been trying to say themselves. Anyway, I should have just done what the characters do, which is say himself. Anyway, so that's Byakuya's proof that the real Genocide Jack is here, because only the real Genocide Jack would have known about the suspension crucifixion thing. Or, again, Byakuya also just admitted that he would have known about it. Whatever. You read the case file, and finally he fucking leaves and lets you do shit on your own. There's also two more things that I think an intrepid reader will obviously pick up on. Did Eli, obviously Sam, you already played it. Eli, did you pick up on the two other recurring patterns in the Genocide Jack murders that you could notice here, even if Makoto doesn't?
Yes, actually I did. Should I say them?
Yeah.
Yes.
Am I spoiling? Oh, okay. The scissors. There's a pair of scissors that are there in each of the pictures, and I mean not just a pair, like they're held up by the scissors.
Yeah, and also they were clearly killed via stabbing.
Yeah, and all of them were men.
Yeah, so like Makoto and Byakuya don't pick up on this.
Nope.
Actually, there's a couple things. So so now we can go through the evidence. That's all the actual plot stuff. So now here's the evidence. It's not a lot, actually. Genocide Jack case file. 2 facts. 1, the killer is likely a student. 2, the killer likely has dissociative identity disorder. This is stuff that they figured out using criminal profiling, which, for the record, is bullshit, but whatever.
Yes.
It's real in made-up stories. Anyway, also, the victims all got tied up with rope a particular way. Also, the victims all died via stabbing via scissors. Also, all the victims were men. I was going to put that as a subtle foreshadowing in my memorable moments, but it turns out the characters do acknowledge this later. They just don't realize it now. But we, the players, do. Okay, here's all the evidence. In the entrance hall, the main hall e-handbooks is evidence. The fact that one of them is broken is evidence. Now let's go to the entrance area for the pool. The card reader, the rule about loaning ebooks, that's a truth bullet. Boys' locker room. In the boys' locker room, there's a strange stain on the carpet. Also, The boy and girls' locker rooms both have posters, but it's a little strange. The boys' locker room has a poster of a popular boy band, and the girls' locker room has a poster of a big titty bikini model. That seems a little backwards from what you'd expect, especially considering that Monokuma is very obsessed with like gender normativity, so it seems weird that he would get that backwards. Also, the big titty bikini model in the girls' locker room has blood on it. It's kind of behind Chihiro. Now on to the girls' locker room. First, Mondo's account. Mondo talks about how Chihiro had a complex about being weak. Sakura says, Chihiro repeatedly said she wanted to work out and get strong, but never accepted hers or Hina's invitation. Maybe she was working out in the middle of the night, but also she explicitly said she couldn't do it alone, so someone had to have been going with her. Next, the locker room dumbbell. There's a big dumbbell on the ground with blood on it. Clearly the murder weapon, that's not hard. Next, the state of Chihiro's body. She's not tied up with rope, but rather a power cord, and she was killed by a blow to the head. We, the player, but not the characters, realized that both of these contradict the Genocide Jack case file. Next, there's a disappearing stain. Sakura looks at the mat on the ground and says, I always drink a protein drink before I work out every day, and yesterday I spilled my protein drink on the mat. But now there's no stain. I should also mention that there is a blood stain on the carpet. So there's not a stain in the girls' locker room where there ought to be. Next, Celeste's account. Celeste says, last night I saw Chihiro in the warehouse. She was clearly getting ready to go work out with a duffel bag with a tracksuit inside. Makoto also notices that neither of these items were at the crime scene. Next, in the library. The library desk lamp was plugged into an extension cord before, but now the extension cord is gone. FYI, this is the desk lamp that Byakuya would be using every single time he was in there reading books instead of hanging out with his friends, with his not friends. This is not exactly a clue, but the Genocide Jack case file is also gone. Finally, one little scene.
It's also not a clue, Maddie, but this will be interesting. I think Eli did just come back, so I will be vague. But the computer, the laptop, is also missing in this scene. It's not a clue for this case, but it is something to note.
Yeah, I will go ahead and spoil it. I mean, this shouldn't be a spoiler. Everything they mention in this game is important. This is a game about mysteries, right? The laptop computer that is broken, and according to Sam, not present here, which is interesting, does not become relevant this week. But, again, this should not be much of a surprise. Yes. It does become relevant later. There is also a quick scene at one point where Kyoko fucks off at one point and says, I gotta take care of something unrelated to the case. That's interesting. She also says, carefully inspect the body one more time, which the information we get from inspecting the body, I already said earlier. That's it. Pretty short investigation, not gonna lie. So, I want to quickly go over the status of each handbook. There are 4 handbooks that are not currently possessed by somebody. First, there is Sayaka's handbook. That is in the mailbox. Next, there is what's her name? Junko's handbook. It is in the mailbox. Next, there is Leon's handbook. It is in the mailbox, though it is broken, and we intrepid players can realize that there's no technical way to confirm that it's Leon's handbook. And finally, there is Chihiro's handbook, which obviously she died, but Chihiro's handbook is currently unaccounted for. Presumably it'll show up in the mailbox tomorrow. We convene in the elevator room. Toko is not there. Monokuma goes and grabs her. She was hiding in her room.
I thought Hifumi found a broken one
until later. Yeah.
Oh, I thought he said it like when you talked to him in the locker room.
He says he has evidence.
Yeah.
He doesn't say what evidence he has.
It is actually true that I forgot to mention something, which is that, yes, Hifumi does also tell us that he has some evidence, but he's pretty vague about it. And frankly, it's Hifumi, so we kind of assume that he's saying something stupid and isn't helpful. So anyway. Yeah. We're in the elevator room. Incidentally, Toko seems pretty much back to normal at this point. Only one thing I want to say here. Everyone seems a lot more at ease with the concept this time around. The human mind's capacity for normalization is remarkable, as we residents of the cool zone can certainly attest.
Yes.
Trial start. Monokuma gives us a starting point. So, sorry, I know I was really blasting through that, but we are now at 57 minutes on the clock, finally at the trial. So, Monokuma gives us a starting point. The murder weapon. Dumbbell. Easy. That took like 2 seconds. Byakuya immediately takes control. He says, let's discuss the culprit. I already know who it is. ... It's Genocide Jack. Everyone's shocked. We and Byakuya discuss the bloodlust message and the crucifixion as proof. Everyone's like, you're saying the real Genocide Jack is among us? And then Byakuya does something that, yes, it's evil, but I gotta admit it's pretty badass. He just goes, yep. And then he points and goes, it's Toko. He just fucking says it. Everyone's incredulous. Byakuya explains, Toko's hemophilia caused her to faint. And when she woke up...
hemophilia.
Hemophobia, excuse me. You're
Yes.
right, that's different. Toko's hemophobia caused her to faint. And when she woke up, she was acting super fucking bizarre and wasn't fazed by the dead body. Toko says, how, ... how could you, ... And Hina's like, yeah, how could you know all that? And Byakuya says, no, what she probably was about to say was, how could you tell them? It turns out Toko had confessed to Byakuya. He's just outing her to everyone like a huge goddamn asshole. Oh, also he led her on.
He's an asshole.
Well, Toko says he led her on. He probably didn't actually lead her on. Toko probably is imagining that. He keeps putting the pressure on her more and more, saying, you did the murder, you did the murder, you did the murder. Then Byakuya says, all right, let's hear it from her directly. And, Genocide Jack appears. Turns out, one of the main characters in this game is a literal serial killer. So Genocide Jack appears, and she is definitely the way that she is. She is the ultimate murderous fiend. Genocide Jack. Genocide Jill.
Jack. Yeah, I like Genocide Jill more than I like Toko. Honestly.
Yeah. I'm not going to talk much. Actually, you know what? Y'all explain what the fuck she is like.
I didn't want to spoil it last week when Eli was like, man, I don't like Toko, because I love Genocide Jill. She is fucking nuts. She constantly is playing with her scissors and doing like punk rocker album cover poses with them with her tongue out like she's in fucking
lolling
Kiss.
out all the time.
Her tongue is constantly lolling out.
She's too much. It is.
She's in constant
great.
yell
I
mode.
love her.
She is like the straight up cartoon caricature of a psycho.
Yes, like somebody will say something like about the murder or something, and she will like casually one up it constantly, where they're just like, wow, that was so gruesome. And she goes, yeah, it reminds me of all the fucking times I killed like 500 fucking people because I'm fucking badass and I'm just like goddamn Jill. And she's just like always on 11, and she's great, and I love her.
Yeah. I'm imagining the way that Tom Hanks says, I'm David Pumpkins, except she's like, I'm Genocide Jill.
And the skeletons are
part of it. So basically, she's just something we're gonna have to goddamn deal with. So Hifumi asks her, are you the mastermind, aka the person behind all this? She's like, no. Byakuya says, well, looks like we solved the case. She's clearly fucking insane. Monokuma's threat of revealing her secret was a hell of a motive. She says no. She's like, look, I love killing, but I didn't kill her. Makoto, everyone's still about to vote for her as the killer, but Makoto, classic Makoto, can't just let anything go. He knows something doesn't add up. So, we bring up the status of the body. She goes, I murdered with passion and conviction, and I have a very particular way of doing things. She calls Chihiro's murder a chief imitation. Makoto explains, Genocide Jack's method is stabbing, not a blunt object. Secondly, they're suspended by the scissors, full straight-up Jesus style, like a bulletin board, not with a makeshift rope. Then she drops the big hint. She says, there's one more reason why I couldn't have killed her. Another pattern in my method that you're missing. which is the part that we, the players, have already picked up on. She only kills boys. Chihiro is girl, ergo, no kill. Only one other person knew about the suspension technique, so at this point, we point to Byakuya. Now we realize that the game's obnoxious railroading us was on purpose. Only Byakuya could have known all this stuff. Also, Byakuya knew that Toko was Jack. And double also, he's been super duper pushy and railroady about his Genocide Jack theory. The only reason we think it's Genocide Jack is because he so obviously dragged us around the school showing us why it was Genocide Jack, pushing that theory. It's the perfect backstab crime. Kind of similar to what Sayaka tried to pull on us last week. He tried to do a backstab crime and frame Toko, who trusted him. Also, this whole time we're doing the whole shoot bullets thing. I'm just skipping past that to talk about the outcome, right? There's a new mechanic. Now we can copy weak points and yoink them. So instead of shooting our truth bullets at stuff people say, we can yoink what one person says as a truth bullet to use against someone else says. So instead of saying, what you just said is wrong because of evidence, you're saying, what you just said is wrong because of what that person just said 5 seconds ago. It's kind of cool. Mm-hmm. So, Makoto says, bruh, right when we got to the lobby room, you were like, let's check the girls' room. Why would you say let's check the girls' room? You're a guy. The natural thing for you to say would have been to say, let's check the guys' room. The only reason you would have said, let's check the girls' room is if you already knew that that's where the murder was. He was like, the victim was a girl. Of course I need to check the girls' locker room. But you say, how do you know the victim was a girl if we didn't know who the victim was yet, you dingus? And then you tell everyone about the extension cord. So at this point, everyone thinks Byakuya did it. It's pretty simple. I mean, Byakuya made it look like Genocide Jack did it, but he did it. Byakuya is like, lol, damn, guess that's how it is, huh? Is that what you're saying, punk? That I killed her in the girls' locker room and then made it look like Genocide Jack did it? Is that what I did? And everyone's like, yeah, man. And then Makoto's like, nope, let's keep talking for some stupid reason. Now, let's be clear here. Makoto is right. What?
Yeah, I think maybe, I don't know if it's this time or every other time in the game, but maybe Kyoko is like, it's not important to just know who did it. We need to know all the facts.
Yeah.
Maybe she said that last week and Makoto copies it.
She said it last week.
Maybe.
Yeah. So... Yeah. Once again, Makoto's dedication to the truth saves everyone's bacon because, like, honestly, if I was anyone else at this point, I would have voted for Byakuya at this point. But Makoto, though he does not actually have a working theory, is like, no, we gotta test this out more. Here's what he says. He says, how do we know the murder was in the girls' locker room? What if the murderer moved the body and the entire crime scene? And here's the important thing. What's important isn't that What's important isn't that Makoto says this. What's important is that when Makoto says this, Byakuya looks shook. Which is to say, Byakuya looks as if he had never realized that could have happened. Which is funny, because Byakuya could have just said, yeah, I did it, and I switched the body. But he doesn't say that. So if he didn't say that to begin with, he must have not actually known about it. So clearly, something weird's going on. You explain about the posters and the carpet. Oh, I didn't explain this, but as the listeners probably put together, there's a stain on the carpet in the boys' locker room, whereas there should have been a stain on the carpet in the girls' locker room. Also, the poster had blood on it. So basically, the murder happened in the boys' locker room, and the blood got on the carpet in the boys' locker room and the big titty poster in the boys' locker room. But the killer moved all of that stuff to the girls' locker room so that it looks like it happened in the girls' locker room. Everyone is shocked. Celeste says, but why would a killer go through all that trouble to disguise which room the crime took place in? And more importantly, how did she, aka Chihiro, aka the victim, if she was killed in the boys' locker room, how'd she get in there to begin with? No, we don't ask how the killer then got into the girls' locker room, because that's easy. Remember, downstairs in the entrance hall, there's 2 girls' ebooks. So if someone wants to get into the girls' locker room, it's easy. All they gotta do is yank that handbook. But there aren't any boys' handbooks, because Leon's is broken. So getting into the boys' locker room is way harder than getting into the girls' locker room. So, How'd she get in there? Hiro says she used Leon's handbook. Makoto says no, Leon's handbook is broken. So at this point, we enter the final act. The final act is very interesting. Everyone is stumped and about to vote for Byakuya. Kyoko says, you all need to see something. And she calls for a recess. Normally, Monokuma wouldn't allow for a recess, but hold on, where are we on time? Oh, we're doing good on time. See, I blasted through everything so that we could take more time on this stuff. Normally, Monokuma wouldn't allow for a recess. And just so you know, I think this is the only recess in the entire series. But Kyoko says it'll make things more exciting, which makes Monokuma say, okay, fine, we can do it if it'll make things more exciting. So we go to the girls' locker room. Here we go. We got a scene here that is a little rough. I actually pretty much only disagree with the execution of this scene, a lot more so than the concept of it. The execution is rough, but it does go along with this game's extremely crass and disrespectful tone in general. So anyway,
irreverent.
That's a great way to put it. It's reverent about everything, but guess what? Certain things it's rough to be reverent about. So Kyoko says, examine the body one more time, very, very carefully. No one wants to do it, obviously. So Sakura volunteers. I gotta say, a lot of Sakura this week. I love her. She's one of the most good-hearted people. Yeah. Her and Hina, they're kind of the moral center of this whole goddamn game, in my opinion. Sakura volunteers. Yeah. She apologizes to the dead Chihiro and even says a little prayer. Folks, she got a dick. Only way I can put it. Sakura is very, very, very shocked.
You could have put it like Sam did about Storm. That could have...
Hey.
Glad you didn't, but you could have.
That's true. That would have been worse.
We, however, will not put it the way that the game puts it because we have respect for Chihiro and what she's all about.
I'm about to get into that. So, Sakura is very, very, very shocked and possibly hurt by this. Everyone else is more shocked in the normal kind of way. Monokuma shows up and says, yeah, lol, y'all didn't know that? So anyway, we resume trial. After this point, I have one little bit of commentary here. At this point, they all immediately switch pronouns for Chihiro, which, first of all, obviously that's very disrespectful. They're calling her he constantly. And I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to be calling her she, obviously. But what's more than that, it's not just that it's disrespectful, it's also weird. I don't think it's believable. Like, don't get me wrong, people can be bigots, but that's not how the human brain works, okay? The reason why when a person transitions, a lot of people misgender them a lot is usually because it's people who already know you. It's people who already knew you as one gender and aren't used to switching. You know, and this is a little bit worse, if someone's a bigot and someone is not passing very well, of course they have their preconceptions. But to put it in slightly crude terms, Chihiro passed really, really well. Everyone was used to her being a girl. So, like, the normal human thing would be for them to just continue saying she, even if they would say she, I mean he, because they're like, they don't, like, that would be a disrespectful, not understanding trans people thing to do. But, like, the idea that they just immediately switched is frankly bizarre.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
So that's actually funny, because that's not even, like, the writers being transphobic here. I mean, they are, but I'm saying it's a different problem. That's not even the writer being transphobic here. It's more like the writer just is misunderstanding how humans work at this point. Anyway.
Well, there's also the thing with in Japanese, they don't often use pronouns. So it could be that they're not even saying any pronouns.
And it's a localization
I didn't pay close
thing.
enough. Yeah, I didn't pay close enough attention to the voice acting to hear if they said kare or kareshi, which would be...
Are you playing in with Japanese voices?
I didn't know there were English voices. It defaults
the English... That's weird.
Oh my god,
the English voices are phenomenal.
Yeah, I love the English voices. Anyway, I mean, you can keep doing it the way you want, but I started with Japanese, and then after just a bit, I was like, no, I gotta switch to English. I love the English voices. Anyway.
Especially for Monokuma. You at least need to get through one full day cycle so you can hear all of Monokuma's repeated lines, because they're great.
Totally.
Monokuma's voice actor is amazing.
Also,
Okay,
as an
every
aside,
time
go on.
every time the Japanese Monokuma goes oop boop 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 boop, I want to die. I absolutely want to die hearing
in
that.
English, it's more like poo poo, and it's
that's
really
probably
funny.
way better.
Anyway, also, since you had been playing in Japanese, I gotta say, Chihiro's English voice acting is fantastic. I'm gonna talk later about her presentation as a trans girl, but so when I first played this game, I wasn't a trans, and now I am. I gotta say, every single line of dialogue hit me in this game that she had. It's weird because this game's about to handle her shit in some ways very badly, but the weird thing is, while she's alive, she's fantastic. She's extremely good and subtle. She acts like
basically the true tragedy of Chihiro, which of course we have a whole section planned for it, but the true tragedy of Chihiro is if the characters didn't bizarrely misgender her for the rest of the game, it would be one of the most positive trans experiences in video games.
It's very, very strange.
It is so good. They went out of their way to make it bad.
Also, I gotta say, there are some parts about it that, let's say there's some parts about it that aren't politically correct. But what I mean by that is, it's not part of the official trans party line, but things that in my secret heart, I actually agree with. Because guess what? Not every trans person feels the same way about their transness. People have different relations to it. So there are certain things that might be like the official, like respectful thing to say about trans people. Like, for example, brief aside, the whole idea of like, oh, I was always a girl, right? I was born a girl and just didn't realize it for a long time. I don't feel that way about myself. But that's not... Anyway, it's just, the point is we're not a fucking monolith, right? So certain aspects of Chihiro's story, even if they don't go along with what's generally considered correct, I actually found very relatable to me. But anyway, her presentation, the presentation of a girl who is trans but is closeted and is therefore very careful about that is very, very, very good, and it made me feel a lot of feelings. Anyway, let's go on. So, again, at this point, they're all immediately using masculine pronouns for her, and of course, I will not. Byakuya says, well, everything's become clear now. Everyone thinks that Byakuya did it because this all checks out. Oh, I should mention, yes, Chihiro's e-handbook said male, which meant Chihiro could get into the boys and not girls' locker room. I don't even need to go into how this explains a lot of the stuff I said earlier. You can put it together. Makoto is still like, I don't fucking know, man. Here's why. And this is actually some very smart deduction on the point of Makoto. Byakuya seems to have intentionally made the murder too obvious. I mean, he literally used the extension cable that he was always using. Also, and this is the deduction, when Byakuya found out about the room swap, and when he found out that Chihiro was trans, he seemed shocked. So, it's weird that he would be surprised by that if he did it. Byakuya admits it. He didn't do it. All that happened was someone else killed Chihiro, and Byakuya randomly found her body in the boys' locker room and decided to... Byakuya ran across Chihiro's body in the girls' locker room and decided to make it look like Genocide Jack did it. Now, if you're wondering, why the fuck would you do that? Also, you wasted our goddamn time with that entire section of the trial. What the fuck is wrong with you? Well, we'll get to that later. We got more important things to talk about.
Byakuya's a piece of shit. That's why.
He's more piece of shit than I could have possibly imagined, and way more than I remembered. So now they finally have to find the real murderer. They only have one lead. The murderer had to be a boy, because they would have had to get into the locker room where the murder happened. Makoto brings up what Celeste saw last night. Celeste saw Chihiro with a duffel bag, a tracksuit, etc. The key point, she was in a hurry, which implies that she was meeting someone. Hina and Sakura remind everyone that they'd reached out to Chihiro many times, but Chihiro never worked out with them, obviously to hide her secret. But that means whoever she was going with, she must have trusted super deeply. She must have come out to somebody. At this point, we realize who she trusted super deeply, and we were really sad. At this point, once again, Kyoko seems to know or suspect something. She says, let's investigate the tracksuit, which we don't have. There's many different tracksuits in the warehouse. Maybe she picked one that matches her partner. Maybe. Then Mondo says, damn, I guess the killer's whoever had a blue tracksuit. Well, mine is black. We got him, folks. How did he know the tracksuit was blue? A classic verbal slip-up. No one could have known that. Gotta give brief props to Kyoko here. She's being an incredible detective. She didn't know who did it at all. She brought up the whole let's talk about the tracksuit thing, which was total bullshit, in order to trick the killer into slipping up. Though she did have suspicions about Mondo all along. Anyway, here's something amazing. So this entire chapter, Mondo has been calling Chihiro dude. And I was going to mention that in my memorable moments as a subtle character quirk. Some people just call everyone dude. And then when they call a girl dude, the girl says, hey, don't call me dude. Or if it's a trans girl, they'll say, hey, don't call me dude. And they'll say, I call everyone dude. You get that a lot in California. So I just thought that was a cute quirk of Mondo that he called everyone dude. But no. Turns out he only calls dudes, and he calls girls chicks. I picked up on it, but didn't pick up on it as evidence. Kyoko picks up on it as evidence because she's fucking smart. So that's her evidence that he actually knew the truth. And therefore was misgendering Chihiro constantly, probably very on accident. He rejects this. Everyone feels like it's not very strong evidence, which really it's not. Hifumi did, in fact, as Sam said, have secret evidence all along. He just straight up found an e-handbook lying on the ground, and it's Chihiro's. Actually, we don't know that it is. It's also busted. The only way to break a handbook is by hitting its weak point. This is where Maddie, realizes what the weak point is, and I'm very shocked at the cleverness of this. That extremely fucking dumb scene earlier, the bro moment that we thought was just a hilarious bit of character building, it was very important. The weak point is heat. They pressure Monokuma. He admits this. Yep. High temperature for a sustained period of time is the only thing that can break these things. Hifumi confirms that he did in fact find the handbook in the sauna. It really was Mondo. When he did the manliness contest with Taka, he kept his clothes on as a flex. The handbook could have been in his jacket and he accidentally broke it, which caused him to learn about the handbook's weak point. So because he learned about it on accident, he could have later thrown Chihiro's handbook into the sauna later to destroy evidence. Mondo says, nah man, my handbook works just fine. Makoto says, is the one you have right now really yours? Maybe the broken one we assumed was Leon's was actually yours. So, we make the closing argument. I'm going to go over it more clearly this time. Act 1. Celeste saw Chihiro in the warehouse, stuffing a blue tracksuit into a duffel bag. She went to the pool area and used her handbook to get into the boys' locker room. She met with the killer, carefree and happy. The killer... Oh, the illustrations here almost fucking made me cry. Because in all of the illustrations...
Yeah.
In all of the illustrations, she's just very happy and carefree and is so proud of herself to be doing this thing with her friend who she trusts. Anyway, she goes to the pool area and uses her handbook in the locker room. She met with the killer, carefree and happy. The killer grabbed the dumbbell and killed her, bloodstaining the poster and carpet. Makoto suspects it was kind of passion, not planned. The killer took the bloody poster and bloody carpet and used a girl's handbook, either Sayaka's or Junko's, to get into the girl... Oh, or Chihiro's. Oh, wait, no, not Chihiro's. Damn it. They used either Sayaka or Junko's handbook to get into the girl's locker room, where he then recreated the crime scene. Later, Byakuya, totally unrelated, finds the body and decides, for unknown reasons, because he's the worst character in the game, to use an extension cord to tie Chihiro up and use her blood for a message, all to make it look like Genocide Jack did it and complicate the entire fucking thing and waste everyone's goddamn time. Right around the same time...
Hate him.
He could have easily gotten everybody killed.
Right. Right around the same time, maybe, the killer, having already disposed of everything else, went to the sauna and tossed her e-handbook in there. The killer knew that would ruin the handbook because it had already happened to them earlier. Therefore, it's Mondo. One thing I really, really like happens here. So last time, we have every trial ends with the final verbal battle. But this time, your final verbal battle is not with Mondo. It's with Taka.
Yeah,
Taka refuses to believe that his best bro would do something, so you fight Taka, which is heartbreaking because you feel Taka's pain at what his friend has done. Finally, you present the final bullet, the broken handbooks. You say, look, let's just all whip out our handbooks right the fuck now. And once you say that, Mondo confesses. He says, get it over with. Just vote. The vote's not unanimous. Taka did not vote for Mondo. Monokuma reveals we're right. He did it. Taka starts crying and demands to know why. But Mondo's being silent. Monokuma decides to fill us in. So yeah, Chihiro was assigned male at birth and had an inferiority complex because she was weak. Everyone bullied her constantly for being a wuss. But she couldn't overcome her weakness. So she, quote, buried herself further and further into that weakness and chose to be a girl as, quote, a way out. This is the part that would generally be considered very problematic, but honestly, low-key, I kind of get it. However, I actually love this part. Her inferiority complex, instead of going away, it got stronger and stronger. It didn't fix her problem. It got worse. And it drove her to madness and despair. Once the killing game began, especially with all of Byakuya's going on about survival of the fittest, she couldn't take it anymore. And then Monokuma threatened to reveal her secret. But, and this is where I believe Chihiro really becomes a heroic character, Monokuma thought that this revelation would throw her into just complete and utter despair. But she used this as motivation to try and really get strong. That's why she told everyone, I can't tell you my secret now, but maybe I will later. But she needed help. So she turned to Mondo, who had made her a, quote, manly promise that she trusted him to not break. So, this is the part that I think is really beautiful, actually, but also really tragic. Mondo moved the body not out of self-preservation instinct to disguise the murder, but to protect Chihiro's secret. But also, he killed her. Why did he do it? So now we learn about Mondo. Monokuma tells us. Mondo killed his own brother. So here's a little bit of a backstory. I know it's quite a bit, but we got to go over it. He had an older brother named Daya, whom he loved and respected, and was his only family.
Diamondo. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, diamond.
Yeah, no, I get
That's
it.
how they pronounce it.
Yeah, wow. He wanted to measure up to his big brother and imitated him. The older brother started a biker gang and became the biggest in the country. Mondo was number 2. It was great, but eventually Mondo started to feel the pressure of having to eventually take over for his brother and measure up. Everyone said, this guy is weak. This guy is weak. He couldn't deal with being weak. The parallels are obvious. He became obsessed with surpassing his brother. So on the night of Daya's retirement ceremony, Mondo challenged his brother to a street race. Mondo was so obsessed with winning that he drove super recklessly and drove into oncoming traffic. His brother smashed into him, knocking him out of the way and dying. His final words, my bad, kid. I fucked up. I'm sorry. The rest is up to you. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. He says, it's the team you and me put the team together. You got to keep them together. This is the promise between men. He had to hide the truth in order to keep the gang together. He could never admit his own weakness caused the accident. He ended up having to tell all kinds of lies to keep it going. And once the killing game began, he realized the true extent of his weakness. If word got out what he did, it would destroy the gang, and he'd fail his promise, and all his pain and suffering would have been for nothing. When Monokuma threatened to reveal it, his head clouded up. He nearly blacked out. A hard soccer ball-sized lump of anxiety calcified in his stomach. What could he do? Right around then, Chihiro asked him to work out with her. Okay, at this point, I'm just going to fucking read this word for word. I have to, sorry. I said I'm going to read word for word, but I didn't have my phone in front of me to do so. I just realized that summarizing would take about as much time as reading it. So I'm going to read this part. I find it very deep, not just from Mondo's point of view, but from Chihiro's point of view. Let me find it. Here we go. Okay. So Chihiro says, Chihiro confesses to Mondo and says, I've wrapped myself in lies. I'm weak. I want to destroy that version of me forever. She says other things too. I forgot to get screenshots. Then Mondo says about Chihiro's confession, her words were like a knife in my gut. I felt like she was exposing the lie I'd been living myself. Chihiro says, I have to change. I don't want to be weak anymore. You're so strong. It can't hurt you, right? So his murderer, and Monokuma then says he couldn't cut free of his regrets from the outside world. He doesn't know what true strength is. I have written here that his murder of her was, remember earlier Monokuma said that she buried herself further and further into her weakness. I see Wando's murder of her as a burying himself further and further of his own, but instead of remaking himself, he unmade another. He blacked out, and when he came to his senses, she was dead. He then says, I did something I could never take back. Chihiro hated her weakness, but it made her a saint. She desired love and struggled to remake herself so she could accept it. She reached out and yearned for the other, while Mondo foreclosed its possibility. He doesn't know what true strength is. True strength is hope. Despair is too easy. Mondo finally speaks. He says, I'm sorry I couldn't keep the promise I made from one man to another. It is unclear who he's speaking to. I think he was not speaking to Chihiro. I think he was not speaking to Badaya. I think he was speaking to the brotherhood of all men and women, the universe. Anyway, Mondo dies. Okay, I will say why he dies. It's pretty dope actually. Monokuma straps him to a motorcycle and makes him go around endlessly in a cage, like the sort of spherical cage that motorcycle stuntmen will drive around in. And it goes faster and faster, and the G-forces are going to kill him. But actually, no, the G-forces don't kill him because Monokuma is super extra. So it also becomes electrocuted, and it fries him to pieces.
It's Monokuma is very extra. Yeah.
I love how all of his murder methods, like, they're not elegant, they're not clever, they are trashy and disgusting, because that's Monokuma. He is a child. Everyone is in utter despair for a moment, until Byakuya has the utter horrible nerve to open his goddamn mouth. Then everyone's despair turns into rage against Byakuya. Sorry, I'm going to wax poetic a little bit here. I might as well do it now instead of my memorable moments, right? Everyone's despair turns again to rage against Byakuya, who has committed what is to me the ultimate and only true sin, the devaluing of human life. He disguised the crime, quote, to make things more interesting. He'd seen Mondo secretly. He knew the truth the entire time. He turned the taking of a life and the losing of it into a tool for his own unholy edification. And because of Makoto's incredible deductive work foiling his plot, now he knows who to watch out for if he ever does a murder. The ultimate premeditation. He's okay with taking a life and prepared to do so. Therefore, not just the life of his eventual victim, but in fact all human beings are no longer imbued with the holy essence, or rather, his black heart is incapable of comprehending it. Monokuma reveals his true motivation. Monokuma's motivation is that he wants to turn all hope into despair. Monokuma laughs in the face of the concept of meaning. But I don't know. I hate Byakuya about 20 times as much as Monokuma. I think that Monokuma, by twisting hope into despair, by manipulating the human soul in the most heinous fashion, I feel like Monokuma values the soul in this way. Love and hate can be two sides of the same coin, but Byakuya's wealth means he's never even seen a coin. He runs on the power of finance and power, and all that is material dissolves into air. Sorry, that was a clever joke that I said while I was being serious. But to quote,
Yes.
to quote Mark Fisher, all that is material dissolves into air. He calls Monokuma childish. He says, when I kill someone, it wouldn't be in such a childish way. Because to him, the very notion of value, of belief, is beneath him. What does belief matter next to power, inevitability, and will? He is stasis incarnate. Not the living, unpredictable breath of life which powers heroism, heartbreak, revolutions, betrayals, but the frozen death of the end of history, which forecloses all newnesses. Fuck you, Byakuya. All right.
Hate him.
That's the end of the chapter. There is one final closing epilogal scene after the end of the chapter. Monokuma is talking to an unknown figure in a room full of surveillance screens. This seems to be taking place after the Sayaka trial, we think. It's a little bit of a flashback. Monokuma says that fear and despair charge forward at a speed nothing can hope to match. Here's the point of the scene. The unknown figure is one of them. A spy. A traitor. A traitor is been one of the main characters of this game is also a traitor working for Monokuma. The traitor was supposed to commit the first murder to kick things off, but it ended up being unnecessary. The traitor reconfirms their fealty to Monokuma, but does ask, who is the 16th student? That's right, folks, that 16th chair in the trial room from last week that Monokuma said wasn't important. Big shocker, it is important. There's a 16th student. But when the traitor asks who that is, Monokuma says, that's my ace in the hole. I would never reveal it, not even to you, my trusted subordinate. To be continued. That's the end of our chapter. All right. Technically, let's shift into what's called memorable moments, but it can also be the discourse hour. Let's go.
Yeah, I will do the one thing that straight white men need to learn how to do and realize that I'm not goddamn important for this conversation. You guys are important to the conversation. I will cede my time and let you guys do it. I watch it on fast forward. My memorable moments of Sakura is the best. The end. You guys go ahead.
I've already kind of shared my feelings. I have more, but I've shared the vague outline of my feelings. I want to hear Eli's feelings.
We're at an hour and a half, so I'm going to try and keep it brief.
All right.
Go for it.
I have a lot of notes.
Yeah. For the record, I think we're actually at more like an hour 25 probably because we started a little bit late. But yeah,
I don't
anyway.
think
we didn't?
I don't think we... I'm looking at Zencaster and it says an hour 35.
All right.
Yeah,
anyway.
but we talked about a lot of bullshit before we actually started the podcast on it, so we're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Anyway,
just don't want
to.
Yeah. If this runs for 4 hours, if you have a lot to say, then it runs for 4 hours. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So I'm going to start out by saying I feel a little uncomfortable giving some of my thoughts after finding out that Maddie didn't have a problem with how Chihiro determined that she was trans.
That's not true. I don't not have a problem with it. I just have a weird problem with it. You say whatever you want. It's
okay. Well,
Eli, it's important to remember Maddie is dumb.
I'm dumb as
she's
shit.
Probably wrong.
I'm also coming at this from the opposite perspective of
right.
of a female to male transition.
Right.
So
which is different.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go down my notes in order then.
Sure.
Chihiro isn't actually referred to as being trans. Monokuma calls her a cross-dresser. Clearly she is trans. She's not just a cross-dresser. She clearly identifies as a woman, at least as far as I can tell from the way I've read her. She does apparently feel more comfortable talking to the guys than to the girls, but I'm a FTM, and I feel more comfortable talking to women than I do to men.
Yeah, that doesn't mean nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And like the way Monokuma says it, he says that Chihiro is a boy through and through, and that just like fucking pissed me off so much. And so I'm bothered by her reason for like becoming or for transitioning, being that she felt she was so weak that she just had no other recourse but to be a woman. First of all, that's sexist toward women by saying that they're naturally weak. It's also sexist toward men because like you're basically saying men aren't allowed to feel weakness. It's just more toxic masculinity. And it's part of what kept me from transitioning for a while, because I knew I identified as genderqueer for years before I finally managed to come out as transgender. And part of my reason for that was I cried a lot. I still cry a decent amount, but I cried way, way more often back when I first started thinking I might be trans. And I was like, no one's going to take me seriously as a man. I'm too sensitive. And there's just no point. And I'm just going to have to be miserable in this woman's body for the rest of my life. And that's how bad toxic masculinity can be. That is not to say that all masculinity is bad. That is to say that the pervasive beliefs that to be a man you have to be a certain way, they're bad.
To quote Shin-chan, to be a man you must have honor and a penis.
also
That's toxic masculinity in a nutshell.
Yeah, thank you, Shin-chan.
Also, frankly, if people who are weak can't be men, then explain Hifumi.
Yeah, God.
Right?
He is weak as fuck. He has the weakest of sauces.
Chihiro could beat the shit out of Hifumi. At the for one low cost of being fucking enraged, you get not just transphobia but sexism too. And I mean, like, if we're talking women are weaker than men, have you fucking looked at Sakura lately? Yeah. And Hina. Honestly, Hina's probably the second buffest person in the group. You find out later she's...
Hina's all about the sports. She's gonna be real strong. Throughout the trial, Monokuma keeps referring to Chihiro as a boy through and through and shit like that. As far as Monokuma goes, I kind of justified that to myself because Monokuma is the villain, and so it's quote unquote fine that he's problematic because we're supposed to hate him anyway. It's not technically fine, but it's more to be expected.
Yeah.
What isn't fine is the fact that the rest of the students just immediately switch their genders. And you brought up a good point, Maddie, that they wouldn't be able to make that flip-flop so easily unless they...
Like, even if they were transphobic.
Right. They would have to be, like, consciously making the decision to misgender her at that point. Because they knew her as a woman to begin with. Now, I have had a couple of situations where friends of mine who I've met post-transition did misgender me a couple of times, but they also knew that I was trans, and I had, it was still kind of early-ish onto my transition, and so I still didn't fully pass. And I think it was a situation where they just kind of overthought it. And they thought, I'm going to call him he. Oh, no, that's the wrong pronoun. And then they blurted out the wrong pronoun, and then they went, oh, fuck, my brain fucking, fried its wires.
I think sometimes when people are in a weird level of passing, I think sometimes people can think you're actually the opposite direction of trans than you are.
And Sam has had that issue with me.
Yeah, I've told that story about 4 times on the podcast now. When Eli was auditioning for Roscoe and James, I was like, "Look, Eli, there's no way you're going to pass as female. I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's not going to work. Oh, wait, shit, that's the wrong direction.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, I know this person's trans, so I better make sure I don't accidentally call her a boy. No, actually, said her boy, dummy. Which is actually kind of awesome. But yeah.
I would also say that considering how shocked the students react, like, it's no fucking wonder Chihiro didn't want them finding out about it.
Yeah.
Because they just, and I mean, Sakura is certainly the most respectful of them, but the rest of them are just like, oh my god!
What the fuck? Yeah.
Yeah.
Ironically, the only other person who shows that level of respect is Mondo.
Yes, and I was getting to that.
Oh, sorry. Go on, then.
So here's what I thought. What I saw coming was that his secret was either that he was gay, and he was having some sort of relationship with Chihiro, which is why she felt comfortable telling him about her transition, and then he didn't want them finding out that she had a penis or something like that. You know, maybe not that he was gay, but that he was seeing a trans woman or something like that. Or that he killed her in a moment of trans panic.
Yeah, which would have been really rough.
Yeah. For those who don't know what trans panic is, and I may have explained this before on the podcast, it's when someone it's brought up in court as someone who has had such a visceral reaction to finding out that someone is transgender that they just straight up murder them.
Legal in most states.
Say that again?
Oh, I said that's a legally defensible excuse in most states, which is horrible.
Yeah, it is. We're starting to get to the point where it's no longer legally defensible, but it's a slow process. So I was very, very pleased at that point to find out that no, Mondo's secret was all about his brother, and it had nothing to do with Chihiro, and the reason that he killed Chihiro had nothing to do with her being trans.
Importantly to me, to redeem Mondo, it wasn't even in the conversation where she told him. Like, it's implied she had already told him, and this was later. It was just about the whole
and his
feelings part of it.
As the person
reaction.
As the person in charge of making sure the plot is explained to the listener, I realized I didn't clarify that clearly. Yeah, she did come out to him at one point, and then presumably 1 or 2 days later, maybe 1 day later, that next evening was when she had that conversation where he was like, you're so strong, to him. She was saying that he was so strong. That was what made him, like, break.
And that was shoot, I lost my train of thought. Oh, his reaction to finding out about her was not nearly as shocked as I had expected it to be. It was still like, oh, like, really? You were born male, okay. But he, like, agreed to help her regardless, and he seemed like he was going to be cool about it. Unfortunately, he did kill her. So while I don't want to say that Mondo says trans rights, considering that he killed her, he is the closest we're going to get to anyone saying trans rights in this fucking game, because he had the decency to put her body in the girls' locker room.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So good on him for that.
I mentioned this earlier, and I want to say this now, even though it's not necessarily, I won't phrase it in a way that's like a spoiler, but it's talking about the game that's happening in the future. I just want to get all of the trans rights out right now. Is every time from here on, they misgender Chihiro, and it's frustrating because literally, if somebody takes the PC version and makes a mod that regenders Chihiro, it's like not even bad, because like Mondo, it's like, oh crap, she died and she had this like weird thing about toxic masculinity, and that's kind of iffy, and no real trans person would like ever say that out loud type thing. But it's all kind of believable and a net positive because of Mondo's reaction to it all, if the game didn't go out of its way to then misgender her for the whole rest of the game.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you could just find and replace those pronouns for the rest of the game, it kind of would be okay.
Yeah.
But also, game wants to make sure it didn't do any of the positive things in good faith.
Also, I will say, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but that's okay. It's a spoiler for it's a spoiler for something that's going to happen next time you play the game. Unlike pretty much everyone else who gets murdered in this game, Chihiro remains one of the most important characters in the game even after her death, which is really cool. There's a reason she's a fan favorite, and it's not just because of what we just played. There are things about her that make her a very, very important character to the plot of the game even after death, and I find that very interesting. That also means that they continue having to misgender her, whereas, like, Sayaka, they never mention Sayaka after she dies, right? Like, she's out. She's done.
I fucking forgot Junko's name for the longest time.
Exactly. So it's very interesting what is about to be happening with Chihiro. Do you have any final thoughts, Eli, or any more thoughts?
Just a couple of memorable moments. In the sauna scene, Mondo's fully dressed and he's wearing a towel over his weird corn hair.
So fucking funny.
Like over the pompadour part in front. Like, your hair's not sweating, dude. What the fuck?
I think he just needs to keep it somewhere. He's like, where can I put this so I can have it later? I know. I've got a built-in towel rack.
And I felt so bad when I found out that Mondo did the murder, because I had fallen in love with this character, much like Taka did, because like he's very passionate and it's very clear that he does care about people, even though he's got kind of a badass attitude. He's a badass with a heart of gold.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Like he is very insistent on bringing you on a ride on his motorcycle, and like he just wants to be your friend, but he does it in the rudest, loudest way possible. But I kind of love him for that. He kind of reminds me of one of my Final Fantasy characters. Like, I play this character as like he's loud and obnoxious and super rude, and he will not hesitate to stab anyone who tries to hurt the people he cares about. And he cares very much about a lot of things, even though he tries to pretend he doesn't.
He's so good. He's so fucking good.
Yeah, even though he is the killer this week, I still love Mondo, because like it was a crime of passion and like a moment of weakness, and he knows it was a moment of weakness. And like we pointed out with Taka, he didn't deny it. Taka denied it. You had to convince Taka at the end, not Mondo. And that makes me okay with how much I like him, even though he's one of the bad guys.
Yeah.
Well, he's also a very tragic character.
His backstory is very sad.
I find Chihiro's. So I think I might want to just jump right off of what you said, just because to share my sort of thoughts, which are lesser than yours. But I find the story of the two of them together to be very profound. I think that Chihiro actually sort of dies victorious in a way. She is very strong, and she overcomes things and is making proactive choices, and she dies in a shitty, tragic incident. But I see her death as a victory, whereas I see Mondo's death as deeply, deeply sad, because he dies a loser. Basically, he dies having failed. He dies having done something terrible that he can never take back, and that's it. He has not overcome his problems, and his problems are his downfall, right? Whereas with Chihiro, someone else's problems were her downfall. And as far as the whole gender thing, like, yeah, there's so much here about, I mean, this whole chapter is so gendered, which I think is very interesting. And as I said last week, Monokuma is in many ways not just the villain, but also the author of this game. Everything that happens is authored by Monokuma because Monokuma wills it. And Monokuma is, and this isn't just in this game with its trans stuff. This is in the later games too that, spoiler alert, don't have any trans stuff. Monokuma is really into, he's conservative. He's extremely conservative. He's very into conservative values, specifically those involving gender.
He's obsessed with sex to the level that conservatives are, so I'm not surprised.
He's very psychosexual. He's very Freudian. He's very obsessed with specifically very gendered notions of sexuality and human relations.
He makes some comment about, like, teenagers are so horny you'll just hump water bottles or something, and then, like, he says something about, like, oh, you guys don't have any balls, but you can get down and worship mine. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, these are high schoolers.
Yeah, he's very sexual. And again, that he is the author of the experience that we are playing because he's the one in control. He is the author of this crass, irreverent thing that he no one else is irreverent. The characters take this seriously. They are in danger for their lives, and he is laughing in the face of that. Though not in the same way that Byakuya is, as I said earlier. But anyway, I think that Chihiro's story is basically a wrong stereotype about what cis people think that trans people are like. The problem with that stereotype is that, like all stereotypes, I think it's not 100% false all the time. I'm not saying it's still good to have that stereotype. It's bad to have that stereotype. But also, like, a single human being can have a certain experience that isn't the same as your average person, right? What really gets me is if you slightly shift the focus of your lens of her reasonings, you get something that I think is not too uncommon. The problem with her transition, in my opinion, philosophically, is that it is focused on negativity. It's like when she says, I couldn't be a boy because I was too weak. That's not that different from how I feel, except what I feel isn't I couldn't become a boy because I was too weak. It was more just I couldn't be a boy because vague hand gestures, right? But what I mean is a gender is a social script in many ways. Gender's a lot of things. It's fucking complicated. No one understands it. But in some ways, it's a social script. It's a way of being. It's a way of moving through the world. It's a vehicle that you choose to move through the world. It's almost like how in a video game with multiple characters, which character you pick doesn't just change what you look like, it changes the literal mechanics that you have and how you interact with the level design. Changing gender changes your mechanics and changes the way that enemies react to you in many ways. Enemies. Like, you know, whether you can float or whether you can shoot fireballs. And anyway, so changing that social script, switching to a different script is because the script doesn't work for you. It could be there's different reasons why, but it's not just because something doesn't work for you. It's because something else works better. That's the thing. People talk about gender dysphoria, but there's also gender euphoria, which is the opposite. You don't transition to being a girl because you don't like because you can't be a boy. You transition to being a girl because being a girl is better than being a boy for you. It's not a pure rejection. It's not a rejection of something negative. It's an acceptance of something positive and beautiful. And that, I think, is what the story misses from her story. She sees it...
I would agree with that.
The story portrays it as entirely a negative act. She failed at being a boy, so she decides to be a girl instead. As opposed to she decides to succeed at being a girl because it gives her her joy to succeed at this track instead. I do reject the traditional notion that someone doesn't choose to be trans. I'm not, and everyone's got their own different story. But for me, I see it as a lot more of a choice than some people do. I see it as a thing that I did, not a thing that I always was intrinsically, and just took me till age 27 to figure it out. If I were to look back in my backstory to like what was the first sign I had of like trans feelings, honestly, I'd be lying if I said anything later than like age 23. Honestly. Or 22, depending on how, I don't know, whatever, numbers, right? The point is, if I tried to say like, oh yeah, I knew I was a girl all the way back in, when I was 15, I'd be lying. I would. That's true for other people, but it's not true for me. So for Chihiro to see that what she's saying, I think, is on the surface could be seen as true but the problem is that if anyone says that in real life, there's a deeper level of truth underneath that this story pretends isn't there. Mm-hmm. The truth is not she was weak. The truth is she had a deep feeling that something about being a boy wasn't working, wasn't sitting well with her, it wasn't a fit. Maybe she doesn't like, for example, a cis, I could see a trans girl saying, because I'm weak, I can't be a boy. But I can also see a cis boy saying, because I am weak, but that doesn't make me not a boy. I don't see those two feelings as mutually exclusive, because to one person feels that they have to be a certain way to fit into a gender because that's their conception of how that gender is, or rather how that gender ought to be to them. In other words, one person might say, in order to be a boy, I have to have these qualities. And because I do have those qualities, I'm solid with being a boy. Another person might say, I know that being a boy means that for you, but for me, being a boy means this other thing. And I can't do that because of my own conception of gender, which is not the same as the societal track of gender. It's a weird head thing. So it's a rejection of your own making, but it's also an acceptance of something else. I think a lot of that, I think the last 10 things I said probably didn't make sense. But
no, I was following you. I get it.
It's because gender stuff is weird. And I think the fact that when Chihiro transitioned, it did not fix her problem is very important. And especially that she says, I wanted to get strong. Like, if she just rejected being strong if she rejected masculinity because she was weak, then being a girl would have made that go away. She would have said, cool, I'm a girl, I'm weak, I'm good. But no, she still couldn't deal with being weak, right? I find that very interesting. I find it kind of the saving grace, I think, of the entire plot line. I think it's what makes it ring true. Instead of even though it's still very problematically done, I think that it still connects with me. Whereas if it wasn't for that bit of detail, it wouldn't connect with me. It wouldn't connect with me at all. And yeah, we don't know what would have happened if she had lived. But I would like to imagine that if she had gotten strong and worked out, she would not have said, "Cool, I'm strong. I'm a boy now." No, she would have said, "Cool, I'm strong.
Yeah.
Now I'm a happy, strong trans girl." Right?
Yeah.
Also, I just realized I feel the same way. I never really cared about working out or going to the gym back when I was a dude, but now that I'm a girl, I kind of very much want to get buff. So I don't know. That's funny. I don't know why that happened. Ginger's weird. Yeah. So anyway, that is. Also, I can see a world where if she got strong as a boy, it still didn't work, because it's not that she didn't see herself as weak or as strong. It's that she didn't want to be. She didn't want to be a weak boy, but I think she also maybe didn't want to be a strong boy either. She actually wanted to be a strong girl. Anyway, that's a lot of thoughts that went on longer than I expected. I'm sorry. My memorable moments are, at one point, Toko dunks on comic books and YA novels, saying that they're both for fucking dumbasses. You know what? I'm not going to comment on it, but I am going to say it's a memorable moment. I don't want to offend anybody in the audience.
You've already done enough of that tonight, Maddie.
I'm sorry. I'm just kidding, by the way, but it was funny. Also, Hina and Mondo and Sakura are both all very sweet. When they first get their secrets and they're all saying, let's talk about it, it's not until Chihiro says she doesn't want to talk about it that Hina and Mondo jump in and they're like, you know what, let's all just not talk about it. they jump in to say that because Chihiro said she didn't want to talk about it, which I love. The two of them jump to her defense. They're the Chihiro protectors have logged on, right? At one point, Toko calls Byakuya Bacula.
Yes,
which
I forgot about that.
Made me completely holler. She's always calling people by the wrong name, and it's fucking hysterical. Also, at the very start of Act 2, when everyone's first gathering in the room or whatever, Kyoko, like, they're all sitting there saying, oh no, what do we do? Kyoko's like, I don't know. Makoto, what do you think we all should do? In other words, Kyoko very intentionally throws the onus of the situation towards Makoto because she's kind of wanting to push Makoto as the leader, which I think is cool. She's like, hey everyone, let's listen to what Makoto has to say. Which plays off of what she did last chapter. Also, the second you get to the dining hall in the very beginning of this week, after witnessing the murder, Hina immediately turns to Makoto and is like, hey, are you okay? Which is cool. She realizes that Makoto, more than everyone else, is going to be upset by what happened last week. So she's perceptive. She's very perceptive. Also, I want to point out that there are 2 cases of gender confusion this week. Remember, there's Chihiro and Genocide Jack. So gendered confusion is the theme of the week. And I mean, also, again, the theme of weakness is Mondo's whole thing. So we got a lot of themes going on. Also, there's a parallel between Hifumi X Celeste and Byakuya X Toko, but reversal, right? So yeah, they're drawing some stuff. Also, good news to everyone in the audience and everyone listening, and everyone playing. Next week, there's going to be a lot fewer emotions. It's pretty much just someone dies and you figure it out. It's a good time. You're not gonna cry or get angry next week unless, again, the killer or victim is one of your faves, but like, I can't predict who your faves are. Sorry, final thing, I have to say this. It is my job as the plot giver. I did date Chihiro this week, and I got all the way through, actually. She only had 4 scenes. I think everyone just has 4 scenes. What we learn about her is that, again, trans stereotype, but in what a way that's often very true. She's a programmer, because that's stereotype. And turns out she's a programmer because her dad was a programmer, and also she says, this is actually foreshadowing, before we know that she's trans. She says, I had to program computers because I couldn't run around outside and be rowdy with my friends. But in this game's vision of gender, only boys run outside rowdily. Thus, that is spoiling that all of her friends were boys, which is spoiling that she's trans, which is interesting. Anyway, it turns out Makoto asks, what did you program? And she says, oh, nothing. I just invented Siri. Basically, she's like, I was like 8 years old, and like in my spare time, I invented elaborate voice recognition software that could assist you with doing computer stuff. And you're like, holy shit. And then Makoto is like, well, what are you working on now? And she's like, well, I can't really tell you. I'm with a big company and I'm under an NDA, but I will give you a hint. It's strong AI. And again, Makoto was like, holy fucking shit, Jesus Christ, girl, you are very, very talented. Anyway, she dies, but I did want to say that is her dealio. I do quickly want to know who y'all dated. You dated Mondo. Sam, who did you date?
Sakura. I wanted to make sure I got hers because I love her.
Do y'all want to share anything about her, or do y'all want to share more later? Oh, I guess, Eli, you can't share more later. What do you want to share about Mondo?
I pretty much already shared what I did with him. Like, he talked about wanting to take me on his motorcycle, and
I thought that was like a metaphorical, like, you know, he's the kind of guy who wants to take you on his motorcycle.
No, like, he literally was like, dude, I'm gonna take you for a bike ride after we get out of here. And Makoto's like, I don't know about this.
Again, Mondo, don't tell someone you're gonna do something later.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, these characters need to learn these lessons. Anyway, Sam, do you want to show more about Sakura, or should we learn more about her later?
We can learn more about her later. Her basically, she just wants to be the best there ever was, and there are nuances there that are really sweet because she's a sweetheart. But we can talk about it later.
Yeah, she
I
is
mostly
awesome, and
want
since she's
to,
not dead, we have more time to talk about her later.
Yes. And I mostly just wanted to thank you and Eli for taking the reins here on the end. I love when we have the ability to talk about issues on the podcast. Like we're a podcast that talks about how it makes us feel. And I feel that's what sets us apart from everything. And you're doing a service to all the little trans boys and girls out there that are like, well, I can't be trans because I don't have dysphoria or whatever, and you
don't
adding
need dysphoria to be trans.
Yep.
Yeah,
Agreed.
adding your experiences and takes out there, I feel is helpful. And the sheer number of trans people in our Discord, it's like
kind of weird.
The number,
just statistically speaking,
the number of black people killed by the police is statistically crazy. The number of trans people in our 30-person Discord is statistically impossible.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure like less than 1% of the population is trans. So, like, statistically speaking, we should have 0 trans fans. Although, you know what? I gotta say, wouldn't it be nice if one of these fucking days we could have an episode where we talk about trans shit the whole time, and we're talking about how great the game is?
God, that's the fucking dream, Maddie.
Maybe one of these days. Maybe one of these goddamn days.
Join us next week where we play Persona 4.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! We're not even going to be able to talk about that with my game.
Oh my god!
Even my game, which was made by a Tran, is it only 90% unproblematic in its portrayal of transgender. It's like, sorry. Maybe 70%, frankly.
But,
you're the reason no one takes us seriously, Maddie.
Oh, that's true.
But
I accept that label.
So I just remembered right before I was about to sign off that I should have done this at the beginning because I knew this was going to be a long episode, and the only person still listening is Matt. But our next game will be a gimmick, and it's fucking stupid, and I fucking love it. So
tell us what the gimmick is.
The gimmick is really weird, bizarre, but good actually sequels to games that every single person who played it loved, that the people who played the sequels all hated it. It is a very specific but
and more clearly games that we've already played on the pod.
They're games we've already played. So we'll be playing either Final Fantasy X-2 or Chrono Cross, both of which when we started the podcast, we were like, man, those would be great games, but unfortunately we have to play the super popular ones first. So but we didn't want to do that because we wanted to just play the niche. But then we started selling out, and now we've played the 2 most important RPGs of the past 25 years. So now we can play their shitty, weird cousins. And we're going to do that next.
The only reason we do sellout we do a sellout game once a year is so that we have an excuse to do Final Fantasy X and Chrono Trigger. And the only reason we did Final Fantasy X and Chrono Trigger is because we wanted to play Chrono Cross and FF10 and it makes no sense to play either of those without playing the previous one. And Eli hadn't played FF10 or Chrono Trigger. Actually, Sam hadn't played FF10 either.
I hadn't beaten FF10. I had played a chunk of it.
So we needed to get the two of them to play both, and we needed to get Eli to play Chrono Trigger, also that we could do this stupid fucking joke-ass block, which I'm also stupid hyped for.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I am so excited to play either one, really. They're both, like, having played the prequel to both of them, they are both bizarre and not related, but very intrinsically tied to it, and it's going to be a fucking hoot.
Eli, so, are you pulling for one or the other?
But with your hearts, or...
Sorry, 2 different things were just said.
I'm sorry. What? Are you pulling for one or the other?
Final Fantasy X-2 because I already own it.
Yeah,
That's
if you vote with your wallet, Final Fantasy X-2. But yeah, all of us so far own it that have played it because we all played it on the combo pack. But
I think I still have
want
my
to push
Cross. We'll see.
I want to push for Chrono Cross. I will remote into Eli's computer to install a PS1 one emulator that fucking works to play Chrono Cross because Xenogears did weird things. I've never seen a PS1 emulator do the weird shit that Xenogears was doing on Eli's computer.
Yeah, it was really fucking bizarre.
But I will.
Oh yeah, Chrono Cross is also very much the sequel to Xenogears.
Yeah,
in a jokey way.
Yeah, but I want to push for Chrono Cross because it's the weirder of the two, and I'm all about weird shit that we play on this podcast. Stay tuned for more games this year. I'm letting my freak flag fly. I can't say that sentence. I've tried it.
Fly.
I've tried it so many times on this podcast, and I've stumbled over it every time. I shouldn't give up.
By the
but I'm going to let my freak. Yes, I'm going to be on fleek with my frag shy, and and do some weird shit this year. You guys are in for a treat.
You're gonna get freaky with a shy guy. I mean, what?
But, first, yes, but the first one, just to hammer it home, Final Fantasy X-2 or Chrono Cross. By the time you hear this, which I haven't even posted the first DanganRonpa episode yet, so who knows when you'll hear this? The voting page poll, that's the word. The poll will be up on our Ko-Fi at ko-fi.com/rpgbookclub. If you want to go and donate and vote, it'll be a weird one. I'm excited. Yep. But other than that, you can find all of our socials. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, because you're pulling for Chrono Cross, Eli's pulling for X-2. I'm slightly pulling for X-2 because I haven't played it. However, I also really want to replay Chrono Cross, so I'm kind of in the middle, but maybe lightly going towards X-2. So please factor that into your voting if you vote based on who you want to make sad instead of what game you want to see. Which is valid.
Not who you want to make happy. Who you want to make sad.
Yeah, no, if you want to make, basically, I feel like everyone either votes because they want to make me sad or they want to make Sam sad. No one wants to make Eli sad or happy. They just want to make one of the two of us sad.
They know I'm going to be sad no matter what.
I was about to say, unfortunately, Eli has been sad every single game. But,
Eli's just a sad, sad boy.
Yes, but yeah, you can find links to all of our socials at www.rpgbook.club. I realize I haven't posted any JRPG canon since last July, and I have a lot of feelings about Final Fantasy XIV and other things I've played. So I probably will write one, and those will be kicking up soon again. Still not the one on Skies of Arcadia. I have not played more than 15 minutes that I sat down to do it, so... sorry about that. I within the first 15 minutes, I already know I want to play the whole goddamn thing, but I don't have enough to write the article yet. But yeah, check us out there. For RPG Book Club, I have been Sam Allman.
I'm Elias Saley Eli Warren.
And I am Sleepy. And by that I mean I am, what even is my name? Maddie Grace Alexandra Spiffle Webbin. Bye-bye.
Toodaloo.
Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.